Alright, so we know all the drama going on with Sacramento, and everyone is focused on De'Aaron Fox, rightfully so. He's the one having meetings with the front office right before the coach is fired. Not saying he had that happen, just saying. But I don't know about you guys, but I don't see a world where they trade De'Aaron Fox and aren't completely blowing it up. I don't see them trading De'Aaron and trying to build a contender around Sabonis. Maybe they will, but I find that a bit hard to believe. So if they are blowing it up, no one's really talking about where Sabonis might end up in that scenario, because with De'Aaron Fox, we kind of know what type of teams would want De'Aaron Fox. Teams that feel like they are kind of close and need someone to put them over the edge, right? Also, bad teams would want De'Aaron Fox as well. You know, like Brooklyn or Toronto might want De'Aaron Fox, but let's put them to the side for a second. I think any team really willing to give up assets for De'Aaron right now is a team that believes they can compete for a conference championship run, you know, Houston, Lakers, Warriors, whatever, right? But teams that might be intrigued by Domantas Sabonis are teams that are trying to get to where the Kings have been the last 2 years. A lot of people do say Sabonis isn't a playoff player, his game isn't made for the playoffs. I'm not sure I completely agree with that, but I don't see a lot of teams bringing in Sabonis to be that cherry on top. But again, a team like the Kings were a couple years ago, a team with a young guard, a young all-star guard, with some potential around the edges, right? But they need that centerpiece to help really flesh out the rest of the roster. I have two teams in mind, and they're both in the Eastern Conference, and they are both bad teams with all-star guards. And the first team for me is the Charlotte Hornets, right? We keep hearing about them bringing in like a scoring wing to help. We hear Brandon Ingram rumors, right? I think they need someone that could help open up the game for LaMelo and Brandon Miller. And having that hub of an offense and a big man, to me, is exactly what they need. I don't know if you guys know this, but currently LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller combined are taking 24 threes per game. 24 threes per game. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but that's a crazy number, right? But right now you got a 6'9" small forward shooting 40% from the field in Brandon Miller, and you got a 6'7" point guard shooting 42% from the field in LaMelo Ball. Bringing in a guy like Sabonis would help get those guys much easier looks from three and at the basket. I'm not saying it's the only reason, but part of the reason those guys take so many threes is they aren't like quick twitch, elite first step guys. So getting a good three is sometimes the best shot they can get. So just having that big that can create a little bit for them and can also finish at the rim with the spacing they provide, I feel like is a match made in heaven. And the Hornets aren't signing a player as good as Sabonis. Like, that's just not gonna happen for them. At least we haven't really seen it. Unless it was Gordon Hayward after the injuries, and even that is not the level of player that Sabonis has been the last couple years. So to me, that's a perfect fit. Now, what would they have to give up? It would have to be picks, right? Because they don't have any young players besides LaMelo and Brandon Miller that the Kings would want, which is why I believe the next team is more likely to happen, but this is the one I prefer more. So there's two ways they can go about it. Do the Kings want Miles Bridges in return? Do they feel like that is a positive deal? Do they feel like they could potentially flip him again for something down the road, for maybe a first round pick down the road? Also, my other question would be, how much do the Hornets like Josh Green? And these are ancillary pieces, but these are questions you have to ask because the salary difference from Sabonis to anybody on the Hornets, right? Sabonis makes $40 million, so you have to make the money work. So the first fake deal I came up with, again, just rough drafts here. Don't go too hard. I'm not saying this is gonna happen. I'm not saying this is what it would be. We don't really know what people view picks as in today's NBA. It's kind of crazy. Every trade is different. But Sabonis for Grant Williams, who's not gonna play this year. If the Kings are trying to be bad this year, he's not gonna play. Josh Green on $12 million over the next 2 years after this year. Pretty solid deal, a very movable deal. Also, solid player to have if you're trying to, you know, build a culture, but not trying to win too many games. And also Salon, who I don't know if you guys like him. He's having a terrible year as far as like efficiency wise, but I think he's going to be very good. I don't know like all-star, but I think he could be a starter in the NBA one day. Maybe that's wishful thinking. And then 2 first-round picks, one in 2028 and one in 2030. I put the top 3 protection on it. You guys don't have to take that too serious. It could be unprotected, whatever the case may be. Now, this is a deal I would do for Charlotte. Should the Kings do a deal like this, could they potentially get more for Sabonis? Probably. That's my question. Do they want competent players coming back right now, because we could also do another deal where we have Miles Bridges going. Then you could take out Josh Green, you could take out Grant Williams, and if you're the Hornets, you might actually like this better because it provides still more freedom for Brandon Miller to explore his game, and you keep the solid role players in Josh Green and Grant Williams coming back next year, hopefully. But I believe you would still have to give up Salon as your only real young asset besides, again, LaMelo and Brandon Miller. And if you're the Kings, maybe you could flip Miles Bridges down the line for another first-round pick, right? I didn't change the picks here. The picks are so iffy, right? You don't know what teams value what picks, how much they care about picks. But in this scenario, you would think the Kings are playing for picks or trading for picks and not a player that will help them win right now. So I think the first trade is more likely, but Sabonis in Charlotte is a great fit to me. And also, I didn't even mention this guy that maybe if you're the Hornets, right, you kind of like this guy, but his injuries make you a little bit iffy on him. And you might be able to pass him off to Sacramento as like, look, this guy has real starter potential, and give them Mark Williams instead of a first-round pick. So you could get Salon, Mark Williams, Bridges, and a first-round pick. Maybe that's something you could convince Sacramento of doing. And if I'm Sacramento, give me that extra first-round pick, and we might have a deal. If we have Salon, Mark Williams, Bridges, 2 first-round picks, we might have a deal. But the other team I was talking about, you probably guessed it, was the Detroit Pistons, who aren't bad, right? They're bad, but they're not Hornets bad. They're mid, right? So maybe they'd be less eager to make a deal like this, but also maybe more because they feel like they're not that far away from being a true playoff team. But I think where we have to start here is, how do you feel about Jalen Duren, right? That might be the starting and end point of this conversation. Me, I'm not the biggest fan, but he still is only 21 years old. So I don't want to put a ceiling on a player that's only 21 years old, who put up a double-double last year, who's shooting nearly 70% from the field. But you look at the fact that he doesn't get to the line. He has a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Can't even really shoot the mid-range shot. Like, what is the ceiling on that player? Or maybe he just becomes a much different player. Or maybe you have your, Capella to James Harden and Cade. Like, maybe that's all you need with someone like Cade. To me, as great as Cade is, I still feel like he needs a little bit more help in the creation category. And also, I don't think Jalen Duren is the defender that he might look like at times, right? And that's a deeper conversation for another day. I'd have to point out examples to you that we're not going to do right now. But I'm just not the biggest Jalen Duren fan. I think he's a good young player that might be a starter in the league for the next 15 years, and I'd be wary of just getting rid of him. But if I had the opportunity to get Sabonis, I think I'd probably do it. So if we start there, if that's a non-starter for you, then probably, no reason in talking about it. But for me, the only players you would have to include in a deal are Jalen Duren and Tobias Harris. Throw in a first-round pick. Again, in this scenario, you're really pushing, Jalen Duren, you're getting a future all-star maybe. So you're getting rid of Sabonis, but you're taking a flyer on Duren. So we're not going to give you a boatload of picks. We'll give you 1, maybe 2. And in this scenario, you would still have Isaiah Stewart that you could play at the 4 sometimes, and he'd also be your backup 5. You have Fontecchio that could play 4 sometimes. You still have Paul Reed. So I don't know. I'd make that deal. I understand if the Pistons were not in a hurry to make a deal like that. But to me, the Hornets are number 1 just because the shooting of LaMelo and Brandon Miller with Sabonis orchestrating the DHOs, all that, I think that would be perfect. And then the Pistons, those are my 2 favorite outcomes for a Sabonis deal. Besides those teams, I'm not even sure who else would be, like what other team would really want Sabonis. Maybe the Heat get crazy and start a front court of Sabonis, Bam, and Jimmy Butler. Just say we don't shoot at all. Maybe something crazy like that. But I don't see a lot of suitors out there for Sabonis. So Charlotte, Detroit, that's where I'd like to see him go. Let me know where you'd want to see him go. While you're at it, let me know where you'd want to see Fox go. And let me know where you'd want to see DeMar DeRozan go. If it gets to that point, if they're blowing it up, let me know where you'd want to see all those guys go. Please like, comment, subscribe on the road to 7K. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm out. Peace.